So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom, and patch 918 has gone live in the North American server only. Yes, you guys, and I know there's quite a lot of you that follow this channel, so I'd be really interested to know what you think about this, because this seems to have ruffled a few feathers. And yeah, so first of all, the reason why I ask about North Americans is North America, the guinea pigs. Yeah, 18th of April it was rolled out to the North American servers. You guys have the joy of playing that pile of poo new patch before anybody else. And then the RU server gets it on the 26th, 27th, and I assume that's when EU gets it as well. And then the Asian servers, the poor buggers, follow along behind on the 4th of May. This is just an amazing thing by Wargaming to use North America, which is one of the markets that they struggle to attract new players and retain players. And they go and use it as a test bed for the new patch. Good move, guys. And judging by the comments I have seen, this is the World of Tanks forum on the North American server. 95% of the comments here are very, very against the patch. They absolutely detest it. So, North American players, let me know what you think. I've only played it on the test server, obviously, and I think after that last nerf, where they nerfed the light tanks view range and their gun handling, and also they stopped artillery being platooned up, I think that killed it for me. I think it's an utter disaster as a patch. I think the artillery, allowing 3 artillery, and they're just going to spam everybody with stun shots. It's just horrible. But yeah, the feedback here on the forums is a little bit negative, and I think our friends in Kiev are going to be a little bit worried about this, I would think. So I find it amazing that they've rolled it out on the American server, as I say, because this is the server that is most in need of encouraging new players. And looking at some of the comments that are on the forum, there's a lot of players who will be leaving the game. So well done, Wargaming, good move. Now, you know, I know you have to take bitching on the forums with a pinch of salt, because everybody loves to bitch here, but literally 95% of the comments here are negative. There's barely anybody trying to say it's a good patch. Yeah, so I think it's fair to assume that people hated it. Absolutely hated it. And there's a lot of talk about even the matchmaking, the new matchmaking failing constantly, that mismatches in players and tanks, and you know, when you've got there's too many lights being played, too many arty being played. Well, you can only have 3 a team, but as a result the games are not going down well. So hopefully they've got about a week to work out what they're doing wrong, and either roll it back so that we go back to 917, or make some fast changes. I don't know whether they'll do that or not, whether Wargaming will continue with their stubbornness, but wowza. So the reason why, and lots of contributors have talked about this, the reason why I think this patch is horrible is just the ridiculous thing they did with the late nerfing to the tier 10 light tanks. They basically were worried that the reality is what they were doing, what they were worried about was that a lot of players on the test server were playing a tier 10 light tank, and because their base view range was so good, they weren't bothering to take binos or coated optics, so they just took, you know, gun rammer, vertical stabilizers and gun lane drive or something like that to basically make these things really, really good, and to change the effect of all the accuracy nerfing that the Wargaming had put in place for light tanks. So effectively these things were mini mediums flying around at high speed, with pretty reasonable gun handling, especially when they had good crews and good equipment on them, and a base view range that could spot anything without any artificial aids. And Wargaming went, that's not really what we wanted. We want a scouty type tank that can, not very accurate firing at range, and can sit there, can basically play a role of peekaboo and spotting things, but then only in the later part of the game actually comes into its own by destroying damaged or pretty much knackered tanks, or isolated tanks. And so they basically nerfed the bejesus out of the light tanks view range, and had another go at the light tanks accuracy, and in some cases also took down their actual alpha damage. And the ludicrous thing about this is that they've basically taken them, their view range is worse than many heavy tanks, and worse than pretty much, I think I'm right in saying, every single medium tank in the game. So you've got terrible gun handling, you've got view range that's worse than a heavy, and all you've got is speed and no armour. Why exactly would you want to play a light tank in that scenario? The reality is that medium tanks can do a better job of scouting than the scouts can, given the nerf that's come in. And they only did it a few days before the patch was then rolled out into North America. The other thing that's got my goat on this patch is the fact that they're worried about this new matchmaking system where there's supposed to be 3 top tier tanks, 5 middle tier tanks, and 7 bottom tier tanks. And they were worried that basically if a platoon of 3 artillery, for instance, got the top, they had all those 3 top slots, the fact they could be working together could be absolutely devastating for the enemy team that they face, which is true. But then is it any worse than a platoon of Emil 1s, 3 of those top tier against a whole load of tier 6s? Not really, I'd suggest. Anyway, in typical knee-jerk way, Wargaming decided that this artillery situation had to be changed, and therefore they put in place a ban for any platooning in artillery. So artillery are unable to platoon with anybody, not just artillery, but even with lights or mediums or heavies. They cannot platoon under the new patch rules. And they did this just because people like Circon were whinging about the fact they would be basically concentrated on by artillery. Now, to me, again, simple thing they could have done is just to remove, is to basically limit games to 2 artillery, or say that platoons of artillery can only be 2 strong, or any number of other tanks with an artillery. That would be fine. Or simply just make the artillery never be top tier. Make them maximum they can be is one off top tier or bottom tier. That would be fine. In the same way with the lights, what they should have done is nerf the view range of heavies and mediums and put the light tanks basically where the current mediums have view range, and that way you'd actually have a role for the light tanks to play. As it is, they're going to be poor at gun handling, view range is worse than heavies and mediums, only thing they've got going for them is speed, and that is it. So we will watch with interest to see what happens with this patch, but I can't remember any patch that's gone into the game in the time I've been playing it, or at least concentrating on playing it, which has been so badly received. So good job. What was it that they said in last year about how they were now listening to their players? Let's see whether that's true, Wargaming, because this patch is a pile of crap, and you really need to go back and redo it again. That's my opinion. I have only played the test server and the sandbox, so I can't be certain, but those in the North American server, let me know what you think about it. Are you enjoying it? Is it going well? Are you playing lots of light tanks? What about the artillery changes? What's your feedback? Love to know. Let us know down below. So some rather better news for the North American server, which is, I think, a move that probably should be brought in elsewhere as well, is the good behaviour program. So the idea behind this was that if you haven't had a rule violation, you were entitled, players who logged in and played at least one battle between November 16 and January 17 had received no strikes at all, so that's no negative feedback from other players, no violations on forums, blah de blah de blah, you would get 5 plus 200% free XP boosters. So that's pretty good. I think it's good to have some sort of reward for good behaviour. But why are they only doing it in North America? Surely we should do it elsewhere as well. Or are North Americans just that much goody two shoes than us Europeans? Only joking, guys, only joking. I think it's another example of how North American, I wish we had North Americans, the North Americans who run the NA server running the EU server, because I think they do so much better job than the EU guys do. Things like this, the tank reward scheme that runs, all the rentals that they do, I mean, it's just so much better, and I just wish we had half as good guys running it in EU than they do in North America. And it's a shame that North America hasn't been as successful as we'd like it to be, and now they've probably killed it with 918 anyway, so good job, Wargaming. So next up, really interesting story around a very eagle-eyed player on the North American server. Again, it seems to be North American all over here this week. This guy Legazimi, whatever. Anyway, he said he was surfing around the North American forums and ended up going onto the main website, where he happened to come across this. Can you see this? French tank tree. And in here is a brand new heavy tank line. Here we go. There's a brand new heavy tank line across here. Now, they could be placeholders for something, but there's this FCM 16. No, FCM 1A. Sorry, my eyesight's terrible. FCM 2C, FCM 2C Biz. A C39, AMX C39, AMX C40, so all the way up to tier 10. Now, no real details exactly what this is related to, but what was interesting is that when the guy, he took these screenshots, thank God he did, but when he went back, half an hour later, the page had gone. So maybe someone had accidentally put it up there, should we say? But as somebody pointed out in the responses down here, given the fact that Wargaming are working so hard to get heavy tanks, they've got a real hard on for heavy tanks at the moment, this would be in keeping with that. If they put in place a new French heavy line that was actually heavy rather than auto-loading mediums, that would be in keeping with their new push about heavies. But interesting nonetheless. We shall have to watch and wait. But yeah, thought you'd like that. Tier French heavy. And finally, new premium. So don't fear, this isn't another tier 8 premium tank. This is actually a tier 3 Russian medium tank. It's the T29, and it's going through super test at the moment, so usual caveat on this. Obviously we don't know whether these details will remain true, whether this tank will ever see the light of day or not, but it's out there and it's being tested, and it's sort of an okay-ish looking tank, I suppose. Typical sort of pre-war, mid-war kind of tank, between the wars type tank, I guess. So as I say, it's a tier 3 premium, 250 hit points, 76mm gun is pretty good. It's going to be the short barreled one, I would think. Yeah, 66 pen, 75 with its premium and 38 with HE, but an 110 average damage is pretty good. Reload time with 100% crew just shy of 5 seconds, so it has a rate of fire of 12 rounds per minute. Aim time of 2.21, which is okay, nothing special. Damage per minute 1323. Accuracy 527, which is not great. Gun depression of -5 is also not great. Speed traverse 35. Terrain traverse at speed is 46. So yeah, and armour wise is garbage. 30mm frontal hull armour, 20 and 20 on the sides and rear, and the turret has 20, 20, 20. That's bloody awful. 500 horsepower engine does and a 17.5 specific power ratio. Gives it a top speed of 44.6, which is pretty good. Base view range of 300, I suppose at tier 3 isn't so bad. So no idea why this is being done. It's speculation on a couple of forums is that this may well be some sort of gift tank to celebrate maybe the 6th anniversary or some other occasion, but it could well be a gift tank because it's unusual to have a reward tank at tier 3, to be honest. So we shall see in time, but go and have a look at the Daily Bounce or any of the other blogs, but Daily Bounce did a good write-up on this, so you can see it in its glory. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give it a like and subscribe down below. In the meantime, just enjoy your games, have fun, and try not to take it too seriously. And North American players, let me know what the patch is like. Any good? Are you going to carry on? Are you just going to bitch and moan like everyone else is and throw your toys at the pram? Or is it just one of those things that's just going to blow over after a while and people get used to the new style of play? I don't know. I'm rather nervous, but we've got a week for you Americans to get stitched up and hopefully get us it all changed, which would be great. So anyway, on that bombshell, I shall leave it in peace. Have you good games. Try not to take them too seriously, as I say, and I will see you again. Gamerdom out.